Thanks very much, Anwan. Yeah, this is my first time ever speaking at a LeadDev, so I'm very, very excited. Thanks for that lovely intro. This title is a bit of a mouthful, so I think the real title of this talk is on the next slide, which is basically how I learned to stop worrying and love business continuity management. And I'll best explain that by giving a little bit of background on my career. So I have had a bit of a weird, I think like the politically correct term is probably eclectic career, as evidenced on my bio slide, where I started out as a hardware hacker in South Africa. I have the dubious distinction of having built part of South Africa's first satellite as a teenager. So my parenting advice is don't let your kids do anything cool when they're young. I soldered something that went into space when I was 16, and it's all been downhill since there for me. I can never be as cool as my gawky 16-year-old self, and it's pretty tough to live up to. But I had this, as I said, kind of eclectic career. I worked at Procter Gamble, which is the biggest consumer goods company in the world, for the first decade of my career. I've worked for the government digital service, did the scaling up of that team originally. I worked for Vodafone, for M&S, but then also for startups, tiny healthcare startups, rapidly growing startups like Moo and Monzo. And I've also had the great joy of being a part of the LeadDev over the last 6 years. And so I've seen lots of different perspectives on things like business continuity management, often just referred to as BCP, business continuity planning. And I think that most people don't feel super positive about business continuity management or business continuity planning. I think if I asked everyone in the Slack to kind of contribute the emoji that most represents how they feel when somebody says, hey, it's BCP time, go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to be fascinated to see what everybody comes up with. But I'm going to speculate that it's not necessarily the most positive set of things in the world. But it doesn't have to be like that, right? We have a choice about these things. And so I would suggest that if we go ahead to the next slide, please, Dan, we can all saddle up Notopus and ride. This is one of my very favorite gifts in the world. We can be revolutionary. We can reject the terribleness. We can make business continuity something that genuinely helps us to treat our customers right, our users right, and to treat our employees better. When we put people at the heart of what we do, including business continuity planning or business continuity management, then things can be better. And so I'm going to share with you today 7 key practices that I've always been grateful to have invested in when I've worked on this kind of thing. And I'm the kind of CTO that I think it's a feature rather than a bug, but I can't leave a fire burning over in the corner. I can't ignore a major incident. I can't leave my team unassisted if something really critical is going on. And so I do tend to care about operations and operability and these kind of things. So I've had a lot of experience in a load of different organizations in doing this well. And so here are 7 key things that I think are worth doing. And a lot of us are going to react to this COVID-19 situation. Some of us may overreact to it. Some of us are going to worry about it a lot. And so these are probably the key things that are worth doing. The minimum thing to do is basic risk assessments. We've all seen these grids. We've all filled in spreadsheets. But I think the revolutionary thing here is maybe assume that it could really be useful. Don't assume it's just something that you're being forced to do. I know, right? Let's pretend that it could be amazing. This is just really basic stuff. Think about the things that can go wrong, how severe they could be, how high impact they could be, and then the relative likelihood. Focus on the bread and butter, the things that are that when you multiply impact by severity, it means it's worth caring about. Those are the things that are really quite likely to be happening or important to mitigate against. And you should have ready to go plans for those kinds of issues, and everybody kind of well trained on what to do when something like that goes wrong. The way you level this up, the thing you do is what I call Dr. Pepper sessions. I don't know if this is universal, but there's essentially a slogan of an advertising campaign in the UK, which was Dr. Pepper, what's the worst that could happen? And so these are the real name for these things is scenario workshop or vector analysis workshops. But essentially you go into a room with everybody who knows about how your business works and you go, what's the worst that could happen? What could go wrong? How long could we cope if this critical system or that critical system went down? How long could we cope if the office was completely inaccessible? Imagine it gets destroyed. Sadly, we live in a world where like bombs happen or floods happen and we may not be able to access our offices again. How long could we cope if key people were unavailable? One of my Dr. Pepper sessions in the last couple of years, a legit suggestion from the broader team was we should kidnap the executive team into a van for a day and just drive them around London without their phones and see what breaks, which I'm not sure how much of that was a real suggestion versus taunting us, but I, for one, was looking forward to it happening. This is the time to think about extremes. Think about both extreme single events, but also the things that could go wrong or that in combination could lead to really bad things happening. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's had a critical incident and then had Slack go down, which was the main way that people were collaborating on the incident. Being able to quickly switch into your alternate mechanism for collaboration is really, really important. Internet going down the same time as the water gets switched off is actually surprisingly common. Think about losing all major utilities at the same time. Think about the fact that you may not know which of the cloud vendors your various tools that you rely upon, and therefore how do you make sure that you're ready for cascading failures, even of tools that other people provide to you. The next thing to think about is think about the extreme cases. I know that we haven't had a COVID-19 style crisis in our lifetime, but we have had a volcano in Iceland erupt in a way that meant that international travel wasn't possible for a whole bunch of time. I've had a major downtime in multiple different roles because something broke an important fiber optic cable. One time it was treated as a terrorist incident because it was a site I was responsible for in Brussels, where EU headquarters are. And so when the fiber optic to the entire city was cut by an idiot with a digger, they treated it like a terrorist incident because that was stopping the EU from functioning. These major incidents are not always able to be predicted in the specific, but they are possible to think about. Like, what if you had another situation where people had to be stuck at home for a really long time? What if you had a major issue that meant that it was not safe to travel on public transport for a long time? Those are the kinds of scenarios worth exploring in your Dr. Pepper sessions. The next thing to consider is, once you've identified the things that you worry about, what is your testing approach? And so having a robust testing approach really, really matters. In the ideal, you want to actually see how you react to things going wrong. One kind of pro tip here is treat any incident that's successfully dealt with, successfully handled, as a live test. You only need to do a drill if that live test, the incident showed you that you weren't actually able to recover. But then you can wrap a whole bunch of your business continuity planning and management into your regular incident management approach. For anything else that you can, trigger the risk, make it become real, behave it as if it is real, obviously with the right safety and the right guardrails in place, but make it a habit to practice so that when things really go wrong, people are cool under pressure. We've all read about Netflix's Chaos Monkey approach. Think that, but also for people, also for process. How do you test all the non-technical components in your systems as well? And there are some things that you may just not want to do for real, like rotating out all of your security keys for your cloud vendors, or anything really major. Somebody's passport gets destroyed is something that probably should be on some plan somewhere if it would be necessary to recover something. But you don't want to actually shred the CEO's passport every 6 months just to prove that we can get him another one or that the deputy works. Sometimes those you would do as a tabletop tester as a walkthrough. And so if we skip ahead to the next slide, think about your incident response as being able to broaden out and think about the broader set of things that can go wrong than just technology. Take everything that you do in incident management for tech and make it usable and useful in the broader set of things that can happen in your organization. If we go ahead, the third thing is design and redesign for resilience. Nothing makes me happier than getting to do a 6-month or a 3-month review of our our testing plan for business continuity and be like, great, we don't have to test these 3 things anymore because we've literally designed away the flaw that was a problem. We've re-architected it, so now we load balance automatically between multiple suppliers. And so if one of them goes down, the system would automatically cope with that happening. How do you plan for safety nets? How do you get observability for non-technical components? That's not just a terrible euphemism for people. I mean process, I mean all these other things as well, your buildings, your physical infrastructure. Make sure you have the right deputies, make sure you have the right controls. And one genuinely good thing is to celebrate the same way we can celebrate decommissioning old code. Right? I used to do donuts for decom at a previous organization. Celebrate when you get to take tests off the business continuity testing plan, because it means that you've made things more resilient. You've made it so that you don't need to test the kind of emergency plan because you've made that thing going wrong no longer an emergency. Plugging away at that redesign and re-architecting work is super, super valuable. And remember that there's a key thing. People worry that having internal controls is going to make employees not feel trusted. But like, frankly, none of us are going to get in the plane with that cat, right? There's 2 approaches to internal controls. Broadly, they're equivalent to make it impossible to do the bad thing, which is a bit like locking everybody up in case somebody commits a crime, or make the bad thing possible, but know you'll detect it, that you'll always be able to know that it went wrong, and that the person who did the wrong thing can't claim they didn't know it was a bad thing or a wrong thing. And so remember that those kind of controls, that kind of checks and balances, trust and verify, those protect employees as much as they protect organizations, probably more than they protect organizations, if we're really honest. If we go to the next slide, super, super simple, but really important. Have a way to text everybody. Trust me, you want to have this. Test it regularly. Make sure that you have a backup plan for what you do if your key collaboration tools are also down when you're in the midst of trying to deal with something major going wrong. When the Icelandic volcano happened, our travel booking system at the place I worked at the time went down. That was not good. Nobody had a backup for how we were going to book travel if that was down, and it was very, very painful for a while. Would you even know if PagerDuty went down? PagerDuty is the thing that tells you that things are down. So how do you know when it goes down? What do you do about it? Think about those kind of chains of events that will really, really mess you up. And I do mean everyone. Think about the time that you're going to need legal to get on the line, or marketing, or the social media team, or the people team, because there's some HR implication to something that you need to do. Don't just think about your technology team. Think far beyond them. Go ahead. Another thing that's a really useful practice is to have everybody like routinely and regularly work from home. This is a good way to test that it's really possible to get things done from home. I know that we're in the biggest instance of this test, unplanned, that anybody has ever done in the entire world right now. But 6 months from when we all are able to go back to work as normal, we're going to forget the things that were difficult again. Don't forget them. Use this as an opportunity. Make those things better. Remember to mix it up. You don't want to miss critical time-specific processes and whether they're completely possible, like month-end, year-end, bank holidays, shift changeovers, maintenance windows. You want to make sure that truly everything is possible. And just another kind of pro tip, every time I've made sure my office network is not special, it's not some kind of extra security layer or whatever else, things immediately become easier. If you treat your network at the office as no more special than Starbucks Wi-Fi, everything else gets a lot easier. And then the last one, not just because I really love the Ghostbusters 2016 movie, is the Ghostbusters rule. You should always know who you're going to call in advance. Plan who gets involved in a genuine crisis. Test that plan the same way you do your other critical response plans. You need to know how you are going to react to the next major event that affects people, just as well as you know how you're going to react if PagerDuty tells you that you're having a critical outage. Make sure you think about the people who you might need, who might not normally be on a rota, who might not normally be set up on PagerDuty, and get them set up. Make sure that if you need people to be genuinely on call, like waiting for a call, always ready to respond, that you think about the same on-call compensation as you do for your tech folks. And I think with a little bit of Holtzman to take us through to the final summary slide. So just to recap very quickly, we're all going to be tempted to overdo it. These are the 7 things that make the biggest difference if you go and invest in them. Do basic risk assessments. Do Dr. Pepper sessions. What's the worst that could happen? What are the severe, unlikely, but so impactful that you should have a plan for them anyway things? Have a robust testing approach, but take the advantage, take the win. Treat any successfully dealt with incident as a live test. Do drills for everything possible that you can. Resort to tabletops just when you have to do walkthroughs for things that are super sensitive. Redesign and re-architect for resilience. Make a big deal about being able to remove things from your testing plan. Have a way to text everyone. Routinely test working from home for everybody at all different times of the month and year. And never forget the Ghostbusters rule. You got to know who you're going to call. And on that note, I'm going to encourage you all to be a little more enthusiastic about business continuity management in future, because trust me, I've never felt so happy as in this current situation, seeing some of the teams that I helped with this in the past actually cope pretty well with it and things be pretty smooth. It can be super rewarding at a really tough time. I'm going to be doing Q&A in the LeadDev Slack in the Leading Through Crises channel, and I will hand back over to Anwan to hand over to the next talk.